Hey everyone, welcome back to Corporate Decoder. Today we're diving into a business deal that sounds like a monster truck rally but is actually about equipment rentals. We're decoding H&E Equipment Services' latest filing about a big acquisition, so buckle up. Before we get started, if you like straightforward explanations of corporate happenings, make sure to subscribe. Join our Discord community linked in the description where we discuss these filings and more. First up, let's talk about a cancelled credit agreement, which is like ending a loan deal. On June 2nd, 2025, H&E Equipment Services finished off a deal, and with it they ended their 6th amended and restated credit agreement, which is basically a big loan agreement they had since February 2023. They paid off everything they owed, so the loan is done except for some promises to cover potential future issues. Also, they took care of their senior notes. These are like IOUs they issued that were due in 2028. The company sent a notice saying they'd pay them off early, but only if the big purchase we mentioned actually happened. Since it did, they paid everyone back on June 2nd, and that agreement is finished too, except for some parts that always stick around. Now for the big news, the company was bought. On June 2nd, 2025, Herc Holdings Inc. officially bought H&E Equipment Services. This was after a plan they made back in February 2025. Here's how it worked. Herc made an offer to buy all the shares of H&E Equipment Services. They offered 78.75 cent in 5 and a fraction of a share of Herc stock for each share. The offer ended on May 29th, 2025. By then, lots of people had agreed to sell their shares, so Herc accepted all those shares that were offered. Then on June 2nd, Herc and a company they control officially merged. H&E Equipment Services became a part of Herc, and anyone who hadn't already sold their shares got the same deal, 78.75 cents in cash plus some Herc stock for each share they owned. If you want all the legal details, you can check out the original agreement that H&E Equipment Services filed with the SEC back in February. Because H&E Equipment Services is now owned by Herc, it won't be trading on the stock market anymore. The company told the Nasdaq Stock Exchange that the deal was done and asked them to remove their stock from the market, which happened on June 2025. They're also planning to stop reporting their financial information to the SEC, since they're now part of a bigger company. Because of this deal, people who owned shares of H&E Equipment Services no longer own a piece of that company. Instead, they got cash and stock in Herc. They don't have the same rights as shareholders in H&E Equipment Services anymore. This acquisition means there's been a big change in who controls H&E Equipment Services. It's now run by Herc, which used a mix of cash and loans to pay for the deal. Some people are leaving and some are joining the leadership team. The company sped up the process for some stock awards to become fully available, which included those for John M. Engquist, Brad Barber, Leslie S. McGee, and John McDowell Engquist. Also, some board members left and new ones joined to represent Herc's interests. Key people like John M. Engquist and Brad Barber resigned as officers and their jobs ended. These leaders got severance packages which included money and benefits as part of their original employment agreements. After all the changes, Lawrence H. Silber became the president, David Farron the vice president, and other people took on different roles like secretary and treasurer. Finally, the company's official documents, like its certificate of incorporation and bylaws, were updated to reflect that it's now part of Herc Rake. You can find copies of these updated documents attached to this report. Talk to you now. Let's step back and look at what this all means. H&E Equipment Services, a company that rents out and sells big equipment, is now part of Herc, another player in the same field. This kind of move often happens because the bigger company thinks it can run things more efficiently or expand its reach. One potential strength is that Herc might be able to save money by combining operations. For example, they might be able to negotiate better deals with suppliers or close down duplicate offices. On the other hand, there's always a risk that combining two companies doesn't go smoothly. Employees might leave, or the two different ways of doing things might clash. For investors, this deal means that H&E Equipment Services is no longer a standalone company. If you own shares, you now have cash and stock in Herc instead. Whether that's a good thing depends on how well Herc performs in the future. In conclusion, the acquisition of H&E Equipment Services by Herc is a significant event that changes the landscape for both companies. It will be interesting to see how this deal plays out and whether it leads to growth and success for the combined entity. Alright, that's our breakdown of H&E Equipment Services' latest filing. What's your take on this acquisition and what it signals for the company's future? Drop your thoughts in the comments. If this analysis was valuable, hitting that like button really helps, and subscribe for more deep dives. Don't forget to check out the Discord in the description. Thanks for watching, see you next time.